Hey everyone, today we're going to talk again about slope. This time we are going to talk about how to find the slope between 2 points without a graph. Last time I showed you guys how to find the slope of a line on a graph. Now we're going to look at how to do that if we're just given points. So looking at the top of our notes here, it says, how do you find the slope between 2 points without a graph? So it's just giving you 2 points from a line. You still need to find the change in y values over the change in x values. Remember, change in y values is the vertical change. Change in x values is the horizontal change. So again, it's still change in y over the change in x. Remember, this means the change in. And we are going to use the slope formula for this. So to find the change in y values, you need to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And yes, that is a formula you need to memorize. So this will calculate your change in y values. This will calculate the change in x values. That's why we're subtracting. So it says, find the slope between the points. You're given 2 points from a line. If we put these points on a graph and connected those points, it would make a line. But we do not have a graph. So we are going to calculate the slope without the graph using this formula. The very first step, which you always need to do, is label your points. This is your first ordered pair. So this is x1 and y1. This is your second ordered pair. So this is x2 and y2. Always do that first. If you don't, you'll start making silly little mistakes. Now that we have this labeled, we are going to take these values and plug them right into our formula. So we need y2 minus y1. y2 is negative 11. So negative 11 minus, don't forget to include that subtraction sign. It's part of our formula, so we need to bring it with us. Minus y1, which is negative 5. Over x2, which is negative 11, minus, don't forget your subtraction sign, x1. x1 is negative 1. Okay, now it's very important to remember when you have two negatives next to each other, they change to a positive. So now we have negative 11 plus positive 5, which is negative 6. Over, again, we have two negatives next to each other. They change to a positive. So now we have negative 11 plus positive 1. That's negative 10. We always need to check and see, hey, can I simplify this? Yes, we can simplify this. This simplifies to, well, first we have two negatives. So a negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive number. And this simplifies to 3/5. 3 goes into 6, or 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 10 5 times. So the slope of this line is 3/5. All right, let's try another one. Again, label your points first. x1, y1. x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, now we are going to plug those into our formula. y2 minus y1. y2 is negative 6 minus y1, which is 1, over x2. x2 is 1 minus x1, which is negative 13. Negative 13. Okay, so now that we have that written out, we are going to solve. -6 minus 1. We have a negative, we're taking away more. So that means it's going to give us a bigger negative, -7, over 2 negatives next to each other. That changes to a positive. So now we have 14. We need to check and see, hey, can we simplify that? Why, yes, we can. That does simplify. If we look at that, 7 goes into itself 1 time, and 7 goes into 14 2 times. So that's -1/2. Okay, let's look at our next problem here. I want you to pause the video and try this problem on your own, and then check back with me to make sure that you are doing it correctly. So we're gonna label those points. x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay? Okay, now we're gonna plug those into our formula. y2 is 5 minus y1 is 5 over x2 minus x1. x2 is -18 minus x1, which is 18. All right, 5 minus 5 is 0. -18 minus 18. We have a negative and we're taking away more from it. So that means your negative is getting bigger. This is -36. Now, let's see what happens when we put that into our calculator. 0 divided by -36 gives us 0. So the slope of this line is 0. Now I want you to think back to what we've already learned about slopes. If the slope is 0, what kind of line is this? If we think back to slope, dude, remember, when the slope is 0, it's a horizontal line. So this line right here is a horizontal line. M is 0, which means this is a horizontal line. So let's go ahead and add that to the top part of our notes here. When we have 0 with a number underneath it, we know that that gives us a slope of 0, which means it's a horizontal line. And I'm going to circle that. So as soon as we see that, we know what kind of line this is. All right, label your points. x1, y1, x2, y2. Again, you're using the slope formula. Remember, that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So you're plugging these values into this formula. y2 minus, don't forget your subtraction sign, y1, which is -20, over x2 minus x1. 2 negatives next to each other change to a positive. 8 plus +20 is 28 over 19 minus 19 is 0. Well, now we have a 0 in the denominator. So what happens if we put that in our calculator and try to simplify that? 28 divided by 0 equals, it gives us an error. That is because the slope of this line is undefined. So that means it is undefined. And we know that when the slope is undefined, that is a vertical line. Vertical line is undefined. So I want you to write that, vertical line. So we're going to write this information at the top here so that we have that for our notes. When we have a number and then a 0 in the denominator, that's going to give you an error on your calculator. That error means that it is undefined. Which means it is a vertical line. Oops. Line. And again, I'm going to circle that because that's important information right there. All right, last two problems for you guys. X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Plug it in. Y2 minus Y1. So negative 6 minus 3 over negative 15 minus negative 19. Negative 6 minus 3 is going to give us a bigger negative, negative 9, over two negatives next to each other, change to a positive. This gives us a positive 4. And if we look at that number, can we simplify that anymore? No, we cannot. So we are done. The slope of this line is negative 9 over 4. Last problem, pause the video, try it on your own, then check back with me to make sure you're doing this correctly, following all the steps that we've been doing. Label your points. Then take those values and plug them into our formula. Remember, the formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This gives you your change in your y values. This gives you your change in your x values. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And see how I go ahead and write that subtraction sign there and then I look at what x1 is? Because I don't want to forget that subtraction sign. Just because this is a negative 4 that I'm going to plug in here doesn't mean that I don't have to write that subtraction sign. That is the most common mistake. Negative 1 minus 5 is negative 6. Two negatives next to each other change to a positive. So we have negative 6 plus positive 4, which gives us negative 2. And again, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we are going to have a positive slope here. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 2 goes into 2 1 time. So our slope is 3 over 1. This can also be written as 3. Remember, 3 over 1 and 3 mean the same thing. This is just a whole number written as a fraction. All right, I hope this helped. Have a good rest of the day. Bye.